My guest today is Jessica Brilli, a visual artist whose paintings feature a lot of very classic-looking mid-century American imagery. Just for context, this episode was recorded shortly after President Biden was inaugurated. Okay, so you're in Boston, Massachusetts at the moment, and I think it would be hard to start an interview with someone in America without asking them what the general mood is over there, because we're now a couple of days into Joe Biden's presidency.
Yeah, I
was wondering what the reaction has been to that.
Well, I think you know that people here are pretty split, but as far as the folks that I know, we're all pretty happy about it. We're very excited to have a new president and a fresh start, and just to get some dignity back, you know. So we're excited.
I sort of imagine it being a massive sense of relief over the whole country.
Yeah, generally.
Half of the country, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think half of the country kind of feels a sense of dread, and then the other half is, it's like a giant weight has been lifted off of our shoulders, and it's like we really just want to get back to some normalcy, and, you know, that's really what the hope is, you know, not to be 100% focused on politics at all times every day.
Exactly, that sounds good to me.
Right.
So your work is very obviously American. You've obviously got a real taste for the nostalgic architecture and cars and lots of imagery that you describe as being from your childhood or sometimes even before you were born. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your own childhood and a bit about what it was like growing up in your family and whether you were creative from a very young age.
Yeah, I mean, I was always the artsy kid, I guess you could say. So, from a young age, I really enjoyed drawing and painting, so it was always my thing. And my father was in the car business. He sold cars when I was young in the 80s. And I think that's where my love of cars comes from. Just, you know, it was kind of a family thing. And my brother and father and mother also appreciate cars, so we talked about it a lot. And it's just kind of important to me in the American scene. Like it's one of the things that really kind of sticks out for me, and like identifying time periods and things like that. It's all about the cars, you know.
Yeah, I think in cinema and stuff as well, that's always a signifier of where you are, is the car, the cars that you see on the road and things like that.
Right, exactly.
Because that's another thing I notice about your work, is it does have a very cinematic feel. Everything's very well composed and neat, and it's sort of a really perfect thing. And I was wondering if there's films that you've seen that you think this is like perfect, and it's sort of the films inspire your work a little bit, or you take cues from the way they're filmed.
Yeah, let me think about that. You know, I do. There is one. Have you heard of the series True Detective?
I have, yes. I've only seen the first one. I've seen the McConaughey,
I think it was
Harrison one.
Right. I maybe it was that season, but when I watched that, I really kind of felt a connection to some of the scenes in that, and just the way they shot, you know, some of the vehicles moving through some, you know, the roads and things like that, and that just I don't know how to describe it, but that kind of felt like it felt. I don't know.
Have you seen Revolutionary Road?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That really.
Gorgeous movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so the cinematography in it, so everything's very clean, and it feels like a film set, but in like the best possible way. Everything's sort of perfectly neat and I think it's 50s, isn't it? And I can kind of see that in your work a little bit. There's no like mess on the streets. It's all very dreamlike and kind of.
Right, and then you kind of scratch the surface a little bit, and there's more there, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe it's not so beautiful.
Yeah. Is that something that you want to put in there then? You want people to have something to look for that's a little bit deeper than the initial impression?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I feel that way, but I also love it when people kind of come up with their own story about what's going on. I think that's one of the most fun things about having a gallery opening, is I hear stories from people, why the paintings remind them of something that happened to them, or, you know, what story is being told to them from the scene. So that's always a really interesting part of the work, you know.
Can you recall any story in particular that you enjoyed hearing?
I'm trying to think. Well, a lot of people, you know, if I do a portrait of somebody, it'll remind them of a relative, you know. And one time, it was one of the more odd things that someone said to me, but I did a painting of a man on the beach with a dog, and he's just standing there with the dog, and the woman said to me, "Oh, that painting is so sad. That guy looks suicidal."
Oh.
And I just was so taken aback. I'm like, really? That's not what I get from this. But I don't really know what to say to that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of people have connections from their past. Like, recently I did a painting of a Carvel, which is like an American ice cream shop, and a lot of people had stories about that. Just going to the Carvel after school concerts and things like that, and just it's very nostalgic for people my age, I would say.
Is that something that doesn't exist anymore then, the Carvel?
It does. It still exists, and it's great. If you're ever here, you should get some.
You studied at the University of Rhode Island, and I've spoken to a lot of artists on this podcast about their experiences at university and college and things like that. And especially English artists are often very cynical, saying that they're boxed in or they're not encouraged to fulfill their potential. They have to sort of fill the ideals of whatever the lecturer has for them or the mood is at the time. And I was wondering if that's something is that something that you experienced there, or were you able to sort of work to your own specifications and things like that?
I think I was able to work to my own specifications. I think when you're at university, you always have to do things that, it's just kind of foundation. You have to take drawing classes or, painting 101. And there are just a lot of things you have to do, and it's sort of almost like paying your dues.
Yeah.
But later on in college, I felt that I had space to explore and try new things and do what I wanted to do. And I didn't really feel that way about it. But I know that there are other artists who do feel that way.
Do you feel, looking back at the work that you did at that age, that you can see the seeds of what you do now in your work?
In some ways, yeah. I mean, I see it in the style, and and in the subject matter somewhat. But I just I think my style has developed a lot in the last 10 years. I've just gotten a lot tighter with my painting, and I figured out which subject matter I like the most. So I feel like I really know what I want now, and what I'm trying to get at.
What would you say that you were trying to get at?
Yeah, I don't think I knew, and I think one of the things that I was always told in school was that you shouldn't use anyone else's photographs in your work. It was sort of a rule, like, if you're going to paint from a photograph, it should be your own. So I kind of lived by those rules for a long time. And, maybe several years ago I said, I just decided that I disagreed with that, and that's how I started doing the paintings of retro images and vintage photography. Because I just think, I think there really aren't that many rules when it comes to art. As long as you're not hurting somebody else or stealing someone else's work, you can make your art however you want to. So I kind of decided that's what I was going to do, and that's how I ended up here.
You do these projects now with like you just mentioned, with the sort of Kodachrome slides and things like that. Have you ever painted something and had the original owner of that slide come and see it, or is it just the influence you take from it, or what's the process with using the slides?
So a lot of them are just sort of anonymous, and I buy them on eBay, and it's sort of like a found photo search type thing. But there have been situations where people have given me slides, like from a family collection, so that when I paint from those, I'll usually share them with the person who gave them to me. And another experience I had, which was really interesting, was I bought a slide from eBay of a young guy kind of in a yard near a pool, and I got a message. I posted it on Instagram, and I got a message from somebody telling me that was their brother.
Oh.
So that really blew me away. That was the first time that happened, and I couldn't believe it. She said, "That's my brother, and he's in my grandparents' backyard in 1965." And that was really cool.
How did they find you?
They followed me on Instagram.
And just by chance, you posted something that had them in it. That's amazing. Yeah.
Hello, lovely listeners of the Who's Flying the Plane podcast. My name is Adam Crowther and I present on BBC Radio Bristol. The show I present is a programme called Upload. It's a place for anyone who is making, creating and doing stuff to send us what they're making and get it featured on the BBC. So you could be a podcaster, a musician, a poet, a comedian. Maybe you've got your own blog. Record it, upload it and make 2021 the year that you get featured on the BBC. All you need to do is head to our website bbc.co.uk/upload for more information.
Upload with Adam Crowther.
So what do you think about the future of your artwork? Do you think that you might push forward chronologically and end up painting things a little bit more modern? Or are you well and truly addicted to painting things from the 50s, 60s and 70s?
Well, I have started to move into the 80s a bit more. And I'm not against the 90s. But it's hard to say, you know, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I do it.
Because I find it really interesting how in my lifetime the 90s has gone from just being boring and, you know, people's childhoods to suddenly becoming something that people are very nostalgic about, and like the fashions come back,
right.
And the style of graphic design and all these things are sort of quite fashionable. Whether it's the same in Boston or not, I don't know, but over here it's certainly everywhere. All the posters around Bristol for club nights and things like that, but obviously maybe a couple of years ago now, but they were influenced by the 90s, and I sort of think it's weird how something can go from being quite boring to being suddenly really romanticized and nostalgic and things like that. So I just wondered if that was happening with your own lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. I you know, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I'm starting to the appeal of that time period is growing on me. And I could, you know, I see it creeping into my paintings. I don't think I could do 2000s yet, though. I'm not ready for that.
Yeah, perhaps another 20 years and suddenly it will be
maybe when I'm like in my 60s, I'll be like, oh, I got to do that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think the only plans I have now is I'd like to do larger pieces, and my studio is going to be renovated in the next couple of months so that I have more space for artwork. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Something I like to talk about on this podcast is how people found their way into living from their creativity. So was it difficult for you to transition from studying artwork to supporting yourself?
I think I was lucky that I graduated from university in 2000, so that was kind of a good time to be looking for a job. And I decided that I would go into graphic design, because I didn't think I would ever make a living as a painter. So I kind of trained and learned about that, and I got a position laying out a newspaper at the Harvard Business School when I was, 23. And that's where I really started to learn design and, did some projects for students there and designed the newspaper. And I just kind of kept going in that field for a long time because, I could always support myself with it, and I could always paint on the side.
I've heard a quite common opinion is that if you start doing what you love for your career, then you'll stop loving it because you have to do it, and there's deadlines and there's pressure and things like that. So do you think
that's true? Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, I do feel that. I feel that way with painting sometimes now. So I try not to let it get me too stressed out or take on too much.
Yeah. But
it can be hard because it's hard to say no to a really fun opportunity.
When you paint, do you sometimes hope that your art will be used for anything other than just looking at? Do you hope that it might be repurposed for sort of album artwork or in magazines and things like that? Is that something that you look for?
No, not at the time that I'm painting it. But it often happens afterwards. Once I have a painting that's out there, somebody will come to me requesting to use it for a book cover or something like that. So it happens, but it's not something I think about while I'm painting.
Jessica, what would you like to choose as your Who's Flying the Plane hidden gem?
Well, it is kind of random, but I listen to a lot of music while I'm painting, and I discovered this band called Land of Talk.
Okay.
And I think they're fantastic, and I think everyone should know about them.
So what do they sound like?
They are kind of, I'm not going to describe it well. Just check it out.
Okay.
Just check it out. I'm not a words person. I do pictures, not words.
Okay, so Jessica, how can we find your work on Instagram, things like that? Where can we see what you do and buy your work and things like that?
Yeah, so I guess for social media, I'm most active on Instagram, and you can find me at Jessica_Brilli_artist. And let me just check if that's right. I feel like maybe that's not right. Yeah, that is right.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot for talking to me today, Jessica.